Greetings and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the latest entry, the just released latest entry in Great Battles of the American Civil War series from GMT Games. It is by Swords and Bayonets. These are somewhat smaller battles, the battles of Big Bethel, Mill Springs, New Bern, and the Second Rappahannock Station. And of course, this is a series that was originally designed and created by Richard Berg, and now that he has passed away, this game is designed by Allen Dickerson. There have been, I think, two or three maybe that have had other designers besides Richard Berg. But this one is an interesting one because it's viewed as something of an entry point, even though it's fairly it's new. So there are obviously many previous editions of previous games with various battles. This one is kind of seen as a good entry point because the battles are smaller and you get it's a little bit easier to manage, I think. So let's take a look at the back of the box here. Let me zoom in a little bit. All right, so it says, ask most enthusiasts and history buffs to name 4 battles of the American Civil War, and you're bound to hear a list of some of the largest battles fought: Gettysburg, Chickamauga, Antietam, Bull Run, Chancellorsville. But those titanic collisions of opposing armies represent just a small percentage of the hundreds of battles, large and small, fought all across the North American continent in the years from 1861 to 1865. By Swords and Bayonets gives players a glimpse of 4 small but eventful battles that, while overshadowed in terms of size and scale by those more well-known struggles, nonetheless also played significant roles in the drama that determined the fate of a nation. In this 9th installment of an award-winning tactical level series, you'll be challenged with a set of 4 smaller scale engagements fought throughout the American Civil War. Both Eastern and Western theaters are represented, with battles in Virginia, that would be Big Bethel in 1861 and Rappahannock Station in 1863, North Carolina, New Bern in 1862, and Kentucky, Mill Springs, 1862, each of which can be comfortably completed in a single afternoon with their small numbers of counters, rarely more than 50 combat units and leaders per size, and time scale limited to 6 or fewer 1-hour turns. By Swords and Bayonets offers a manageable introduction to the core mechanics and rule systems of the GBACW series. Each battle is fought on a 22 by 17-inch map, accommodating players who are as pressed for space as they may also be for time. So that's pretty good. Sounds pretty good to me. I won't read the entirety here, but you do have obviously a look at the typical kind of look at the components on the back. We've got the 4 maps here. As you heard just now, they are all 17 by 22-inch maps, so very small, not small necessarily, but manageable size. Not a lot of table space will be needed for this one. Then you've got a look at the various counters, some of the counters at least, from leaders and units to markers and so on. It's a 1 to 2 player game. This is a solitaire friendly system. 4+ hours, 14 and up. Our complexity is a 7, so relatively high, but our solitaire suitability is also a 7, so also relatively high. Units are 50 men or 1 cannon per strength point, so significantly smaller than a lot of other Civil War games, I guess I would say, at least the ones I've played. And I haven't played a ton, but I am kind of in a American Civil War kind of fever maybe at the moment. I'm really enjoying playing ACW games that this was a conflict I hadn't played a ton of in the past, so I'm having a lot of fun with these. Our hex scale is 140 yards per hex with 20-foot height gradations, and the time for each turn is 1 hour. So we're going to get 2 sheets of half-inch counters, 2 22 by 17-inch back printed maps, 4 back printed terrain effect chart, second disorder charts, 2 fold-out player aid cards, 4 back printed organizational cards, 1 series rule booklet, 1 scenario battle book, 1 examples of play booklet, and 2 10-sided dice. As we mentioned, game design was by Allen Dickerson. Series designer Richard H. Berg. Developer was Bill Byrne. And the scenario research and design was Allen Dickerson and Bill Byrne. All right, so let's take a look and see what's inside the box. All right, 2 10-sided dice, as promised, a gray and a blue, kind of appropriate for this particular conflict. Then we've got our examples of play booklet. I'll put that aside for the moment. Here is our series rulebook, somewhat hefty. This is a complexity of 7 game, as we saw. Then we also have our battle book. So this is your kind of written material here. Put this aside. So we've got our rulebook, our battle book, which will cover all the battles, of course, and then the example of play. So I think we, as I usually do, I will start with the series rulebook. This is the 2024 edition. So we'll put these to the side here for the moment, and we will take a look at our rule book. So we have our table of contents here, 44 pages to the credits. You got an index on page 42. So optional rules start, looks like on 40. So you got basically 39 to 40 pages of rules here. So I won't go through this because we're going to flip through the book anyway, but you can see that, as I said, there's a decent amount of rules to this game. So here's our intro, the components, the units, which are of course important. So let's take a quick look at this here on this page. So down here you can see you've got infantry unit and artillery unit, and what each symbol on the counters means. You've got your name, your formation, your movement allowance there on the bottom right, cohesion in the center with a box around it. Strength is there in the bottom left, weapon type. And then the artillery is pretty much the same, as you can see. But obviously, they're different types of units. The strength is bracketed. And then up top here, you've got Army commanders, Corps commanders, and division commanders. So looking at the Army first, got Phil Sheridan here with his rank, his initiative rating, his command range, and what command he is. Then you got your Corps commander, that would be Stonewall here. So his name and rank, efficiency, command, and command range. Division leaders, so pretty much the same, right? Except you start to see other things here as you go down the ladder. Brigade coordination and activation rating is in here, as well as the command range and command and rank and name, etc., right? The identifying things. Then you've got your regimental or brigade leaders here, and they've got the same kind of thing as above, except instead of brigade coordination, you see action profile. They still have a command range, and they have an orders rating, and so they're each leader there is a little bit different, obviously. We have activation markers here, front and back. There are informational markers, as you would expect in a war game as well. So make sure yeah, that's pretty good. Then our charts and tables, our game scale. We looked at that on the back of the box. The 2 dice, universal disorder die roll. During play, you'll often perform a universal disorder die roll to determine the outcome of certain situations. When a unit is required to undergo a UDD, the owning player rolls 1 die and compares the results to that unit's cohesion rating. Okay, so that is the rating in the bottom center of the unit. And if the result is the same or lower than the unit's cohesion rating, it passes, usually without a penalty. And if it's higher, the unit fails and a penalty usually applies. UDDs are not actions, okay, so they won't count against your actions. Got a terminology here, so I won't go through all of these, but as you play, you can always refer back to this if you see something that maybe you don't remember what it stands for. You can check that out right here. Sequence of play. When you do have any questions, you can contact GMT. Sequence of play. You've got the overview. Okay, so the overview says, after determining efficiency and giving orders to eligible brigades, the player with the initiative, which is determined by a die roll, chooses which division he wants activated to start the turn. In the activation phase, brigades may change orders and units move, fire, shock, etc. Based on their orders, after the initiative player undertakes actions with his chosen command, commands are then activated by blindly drawing an activation marker from the activation marker pool. This continues until all activation markers have been drawn. After the activation phase, some housekeeping steps are performed and the turn ends. Okay. So someone gets initiative, gets to go first. After that, it's blind draw, basically. So you got your initiative segment where both players will roll a die to determine who has initiative. Then the order segment, you determine chain of command. So you want to make sure you're within chain of command, right? Activation efficiency determination. You're going to pick efficiency markers to determine the efficiency of each of his core, each player for his own cores, his or her, I should say. He uses this efficiency to see how many activation markers the divisions of that core receive that turn. Okay, so that's a little twist on the chit thing. I mean, there are games that have multiple chits per formation, let's say, but a lot of them are just one. You pull it out, and that's who you get to activate. Anyway, I digress. Division orders phase. So with it, players with a chain of command from brigade leaders to corps commanders may change the orders of any brigade in that chain. Reinforcement orders. You give orders to all your reinforcements that are scheduled to arrive that turn. Reserve placement phase, you can place some commands in reserve. Engineering phase, place build markers to indicate breastwork construction. Then it goes through your activation segment. So you have an initiative activation choice. The player with the initiative chooses which activation marker he will activate to start the turn. Then you've got your pool placement, all AMs available from 2B right here for both sides except the one selected for the initiative activation. 3-3A, that would be this one up here. Activates placed it in the pool, which is an opaque container, so we'll use a cup. Activation command selected in 3 activates first, therefore either player draws an activation thereafter, sorry. You'll draw from the pool, then you can undertake various actions that include all active command may do the following: change orders, brigade coordination, and actions like move and/or fire, resupply ammo, rally disordered units. Eligible units may shock after the brigade's units have undertaken all desired action. Each brigade in that division completes all action before the next brigade goes. There's an exception for brigade coordination. All right, next we have our end of turn segment, the commander movement phase, where you can move any corps or overall commanders. This is the only time that they can do so voluntarily. Then you've got your replacement recovery phase, where you're going to replace anybody who was eliminated, do in reserve activities, rally, fatigue, etc., remove commands, basically kind of clean up, right? Combat effectiveness phase, to see if anybody's combat ineffective, and your turn record phase, moving to the next turn. Then you've got your command system, goes through the leaders. So your initiative rating is used to affect the initiative die roll and increase the core efficiency of that number of core commanders if eligible. And command range, which is all covered in here in subsections. Command range is over here. So then you've got core commanders. They have 3 stars, right? Overall has 4. Core has 3. The efficiency ratings, a modifier used to adjust divisional efficiency, and then of course command range. And then your division leaders have 2 stars, and they have brigade coordination, the command range, and the activation rating, which is just a modifier to adjust the number of activations that division may undertake during the turn. And then you've got your brigade leaders. So they have action profile, which was, kind of unique to them. You've got A for aggressive, N for normal, C for cautious, and U for unreliable. This rating is used when a loose cannon result occurs when changing orders. An aggressive leader may also provide a DRM in shock. Orders rating is a DRM used whenever the brigade wishes to change orders as needed. Right? Then it goes into explanations of your command range, your movement allowances. They don't have it printed on the counter. It is 10 for all brigade and division leaders. The movement allowance for corps and overall is 40, but they may only move in the commander movement phase, and if they use more than 10, their abilities are reduced in the upcoming turn. And then replacement leaders, the reverse side of a leader counter usually shows the leader who replaces him if he becomes a casualty. Then you got your chain of command explanation. I won't go through that too deeply. I always try to, I always end up feeling like I'm going too in depth. Then you've got your artillery command and your activation system. So it's based on efficiency, the ability of the cardboard units to do what the player wants them to do. Efficiency is a product of chain of command and leadership ability. The efficiency mechanic serves two other play and simulation functions. It slows down the pace of a gamed battle to something approaching reality a bit more, and it provides just a touch of the fog of war. So to give you an overview, and then turn initiative, how's that determined, right? And then efficiency and how that works. There is a design note in here. So efficiency determines how many times the units in a corps may be activated in a turn, but then the design note says smaller battles, especially those that do not have corps, use a similar system to this, but focus more on divisions. So it's scaled down, which would make sense. So there's a lot on efficiency and how that works. Then you've got the activation rules for brigade activation and coordination. Then you've got, here's your coordination table. So you can see 0-2 is a confusion, which of course is a really bad result. Then you have fail, which probably doesn't have any negative impact aside from not being able to use coordination. Then you can coordinate 2 brigades, 3 brigades, or all, based on your die roll there. And you do get a plus, you get your division leader's coordination rating. So then you've got march orders being out of command, efficiency transfer. Players may take advantage of the chain of command to increase the efficiency of certain commands by transferring 2 activations from 1 or 2 divisions to another division. These divisions need not belong to the same corps. Interesting. Okay. Ending the turn, here's the breakdown of the order system. So you have types of orders: march orders, advance orders, and attack orders, and then actions that go with them. For march orders, for road pike movement, you get a half movement point because you're under march orders, right? So you're probably in column or whatever. Then you've got advance orders, which is more prepared for battle, of course, and that takes 1 movement point. Move adjacent to an enemy unit. You have to keep 4 hexes away. Under march orders, you can only approach enemy artillery, and under attack orders, you can move adjacent to an enemy unit. Activation, you got a march activation here, normal, infantry stacking. So you have different strength points that you can have in your stack. Under march orders, it's 7. Under advance, it's 15, and under attack, it's also 15. Cavalry stacking is 4 under march and 7 and 7. Then you've got other actions, construction. You can't do any of these under the march orders. That's construction. May fire, may move and fire, may shock. You can see construction is available to under advance. So is fire. Move and fire is not, and may shock is yes. Then under attack orders, you can't do construction, but you can fire, move and fire, and shock. Okay, so you got a nice little matrix there to kind of go through all that. Then each one is explained in here. Brigade order changes. How does that work? When an activation marker is drawn, it activates an on-map brigade, whether it is a divisional activation marker or a march activation marker. Each brigade so activated may attempt to change its orders, provided its leader is also on map. This is done before any units of any brigade or any leaders activating under this activation marker undertake any actions. Okay. Order change table, again, die roll, right? Retain and stand, retain. Loose cannon, so that's a 4, gives you the loose cannon result. Change and stand, and then change. Then you have unreliable. You have to roll a die to determine whether they're aggressive, normal, or cautious. So that you got those kind of like unreliable wild card type commanders. Facing is apparently important in this series. And you have, how do you change face, right? Facing itself is pretty standard. The 2 hex sides to the front or top of the unit are the front. The 2 to the sides are the flanks, and the 2 to the bottom are the rear. Pretty straightforward. You will note that you've got your vertex up when you're under advance or attack. And then for march orders, it changes because you've got more flank, which is I think a pretty cool concept here, right? So you've got your vertices are off to the sides, and you're squared up inside the hex. So you only have 1 hex side that's front and 1 that's rear. You have 4 that are flank, so you're much more vulnerable to flanking attacks. So how do you change refused flanks? Okay, interesting. A unit may refuse if it is either at the end of a line or in the center of a line with a friendly unit in one flank and another friendly in the opposite rear hex, not adjacent to any friendly unit. This means that the end of the unit or stack of units bends backward away from the line, as in the diagram below. So let's look at this diagram. Okay, so here you have, and you can see refused left, refused right, so it's a bend in your formation. That's pretty interesting too. Fire arcs for refused units. So it actually changes your firing strength points. A 7 SP unit, that's this guy here, could fire 4 strength points through its normal front and 3 through its refused front, which is this direction. So you get a little bit extra, but it splits your strength points. You get a little bit extra firing ability. A 5 SP unit stacked above a 3 SP unit could fire 4 through its normal frontal and 1 through its refused frontal. 3 SP below it could fire 2 SPs only through its refused frontal hex. Okay. Stacking. So we talked about the stacking movements, stacking limits that are based basically on what you're doing. Goes into the details here for stacking, the limits, how it works with movement, how it works with combat, extended lines. So now you're getting into formations and things like that. You can see here. And extended columns. Then we got movement rules over here. This stuff is more in depth, and again, I don't want to go through everything, so we're kind of skimming now. You've got leader movement, how terrain affects it, enemy units and movement, artillery and enemy units, reaction movement, reinforcements, and then you get into combat. Fire combat. Units may fire at an enemy when activated and under attack orders in addition to movement, activated and under advance orders instead of movement, and in reaction to certain enemy actions, but not while under march orders, right? You cannot fire when you're under march orders. Okay, and then you have a rifled musket and its range. So you can see it's very effective at shorter distances, and then the further you get out, the less effective it would be, which makes sense. So you got your rifles here and then your regular muskets here, which obviously are much less effective and not as powerful in terms of range. We got a parrot rifle here. All right, line of sight. How does that work? Nice example here with the various levels and so on for slopes. Then you can see here there's crests, optional but recommended. I almost said not recommended, which would be probably something they wouldn't put in the rules at all. The reciprocal nature of line of sight, that makes sense. If one can see, if you can see him, he can see you kind of thing. Combat units. Line of sight is not the only consideration when determining whether combat units block fire. The danger of friendly fire incidents was such that small arms canister fire over the heads of friendly troops only occurred when the latter were well below the line of sight. So they took precautions to not shoot their own men. Phasing fire, non-phasing fire. So that's more like, I guess, reaction fire. Or opportunity fire in some games is what they may call that. Then you've got prepared fire, artillery fire, split fire. Some games don't let you do that. Artillery range issues. You've got canister and grape shot versus shot and shell. Artillery fire at 1, 2, or 3 hexes, canister and grape shot is resolved as small arms. Artillery fire at a range of 4 hexes or greater uses the artillery fire table. It affects all units individually and equally in the target hex. Okay. Your DRMs for firing, ammo depletion and resupply, which is an optional rule. Then you got shock assault, right? This is your hand-to-hand charging and assaulting and so on and so forth. Basic concepts. Your shock procedure, designate all attacking units and targets of shock and charge. Perform retreat before shock. Green attacker commitment check, so you have to check if your guys are going to do it. Defender's pre-shock cohesion check, pre-shock reaction fire, and then you resolve shock and apply disorder. Shock is resolved after all movement, fire rally, and resupply is completed. So it's basically your last part of combat. And then requirements for shock, pre-shock resolution, all the details on how shock works. Shock resolution. So the shock rules are pretty comprehensive, as I would expect. Here's cavalry charges over here. For cavalry to charge, it must be under attack orders, have an enemy unit within its line of sight, be able to move adjacent to that unit using no more than 5 movement points, have started the activation within command range of its brigade leader if it has one. Cavalry that disorders during the charge attempt must complete the charge unless it retreats due to suffering a second disorder. Okay, they can't fire while charging. Then you've got artillery shock capability. Artillery may never shock attack. Artillery may not retreat before shock, probably because they'd have to limber it. If a disordered artillery unit fails a pre-shock cohesion check, then the crew has abandoned the guns. Place an abandoned 1 marker on the artillery unit. Combat results. All combat units have combat strength points, incremental steps, representing their manpower for infantry and cavalry, or guns for artillery at the start of the battle. Thus, an infantry unit with 6 SP starts with 6 such steps, while one with 11 starts with 11 steps. The SP value on a counter is the maximum strength that unit may ever have. To indicate lost steps, place a numbered step loss marker beneath the counter to keep track of its present strength. When a unit has taken step losses equal to its original strength, it's eliminated. Okay, so it says some players like the marker to indicate steps lost, others present strength. It matters little which method you will use as long as both of you agree which method is being used. Makes sense. You've got retreating, you've got advancement, you've got routing, all the things you would expect. Leader casualties. Leaders were killed in fighting in the Civil War. Then you've got abandoned guns, combat effectiveness, and rallying. Recovery from routing. And then special units, you've got green units. Regiments that had not been any action before are green. They are indicated with a G next to their cohesion rating. Green units remain green the entire course of the game. Green units must make a special pre-shock commitment check when shock attacking and have a -1 DRM when firing. Other than that, they are treated normally. Cavalry can exist in one of 2 states, as you might expect, mounted and dismounted. Therefore, each cavalry unit has 2 counters, each one representing one of these states. You see the individual battle books for exceptions, okay? The Spencer repeater there, rules for that. Then we have engineering with breastworks, night turns from dusk till dawn, straggler recovery, and then your optional fatigue ratings, and it's fatigue rules, and that includes effects, who can get fatigued, how it's incurred, effects of fatigue, reducing fatigue. Then we hit our index. And at the back, you've got your game credits. Okay. So, quick look at the battle book. So, we've got 4 battles in here. right? And this will address special rules and things, so on, right? So here are our special rules right at the front. Your component list, your command system. There are no overall battlefield commanders, nor are there core commanders for these small battles. So there you go. That's a big change in the system from most games where you do have army and core commanders. Like if you're playing Into the Woods, which is Shiloh, then obviously you're going to have people like Grant and Johnston in the game, and they're going to be, you know, overall commanders. Artillery command, activation system. So these are changes to these, right? Your stacking rules, your movement rules have some adjustment. Ammo depletion and resupply is not optional in this game for fire combat. You've got special units, large regiments. Many of the infantry regiments in these battles are 8 strength points or larger for most of these units. Breakdown counters have been provided. So you don't have to use the step loss once, you know, you can break it down to a 5 or whatever. Engineering, constructing breastworks. Breastworks may not be constructed in any hex. At New Bern, permanent breastworks are printed on the map. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that. And you've got fatigue. In all by Swords and Bayonets battles, fatigue's not optional. And then initial deployments. Then we get stuff about the battles. So here's Big Bethel. And you can see it tells you the game scale, the sources that they use to create the scenario, the command system, chain of command. So these are, again, moves or rules rather that are special for this particular battle, right? Wythe Creek, the main terrain obstacle is Wythe Creek. Crossing at non-ford hex sides costs an extra movement point and causes an automatic disorder result for infantry. +2 movement points and automatic disorder for cavalry. Artillery can only cross the creek at the county bridge or the ford. Interesting. All right. And you've got your setup information. There's no Union setup. Here's their reinforcements and reinforcement, variable reinforcements up here. Then you have Confederate setup, and they're where they go. And then Confederate reinforcements, of which there are none. Then you've got optional variants for the battle. Then we go to Mill Springs, which was in Kentucky. And again, special rules, including movement rules. We got skirmishers in this one. Rain, so some weather. Fatigue, random events. So you have events in this one. This is pretty interesting. And then, of course, we have Union setup and alert schedule, no reinforcements, Confederate setup and their reinforcements. New Bern, same thing, special rules, including gunboats. Gunboat fort accuracy table, bombardment table, the Weathersby road position, Fort Thompson garrison, Fort Thompson line abandonment. So you got a lot of special kind of charts on here. Well, you have some die roll tables, and you have some award points for Fort Thompson line abandonment award. So the Union will get victory points based on how early or lose some if it's late for when the Confederates abandon Fort Thompson. Then you get a capture. They get victory points for capturing it, of course. And levels of victory, so victory point stuff. Here's our setup reinforcements for both sides, and optional Confederate reinforcements. And then the last one is Rappahannock Station, Virginia. You got a pontoon bridge. There's the station, the Orange and Alexandria Railroad. Hoke as replacement brigadier. Couple of notes about the 21st and 1st North Carolina Battalion here. So, okay. Then you got the historical scenario. Okay. Special rules, the setup. And then an afternoon scenario, which starts at 1400 and ends at the completion of the 1800 turn. No setup, reinforcements for the Union, and then Confederate setup and reinforcements. Then we have our designer notes. And I think that, oh, here's our look at the counters that are included in the game, the manifest, and credits on the back. And we have an example of play, and I may use this when we do gameplay videos. So we can do a Big Bethel playthrough perhaps with this. This will make it a little easier kind of to learn the game. Because it says right here, first line of the forward, the main goal of Buy Swords and Bayonets is to serve as something of a starter kit for the great battles of the American Civil War series. The GBACW design team frequently get questions from new players and from veterans too about the intricacies of the rules. Players who are kicking the tires and considering joining our ranks often say they are intimidated by the crunchy rule set and fiddly mechanics of the system. This, combined with the tendency of the battles we cover to be the large pivotal ones like Gettysburg, Shiloh, Chickamauga, and Stones River, results in a seemingly insurmountable hurdle for the new strawfoot recruit. In GBACW parlance, we would say that they failed their green commitment check, which of course is what you check when you're trying to send green units into shock combat. All right, let's take a look at what's in the rest of the box here. This has gotten quite long. We do have a counter tray, which you don't often get, but that's kind of a welcome sight here. That's very old school, but very cool and welcome. So here we have the Battle of Big Bethel, June 10th, 1861, pretty early in the war. So you have drawn markers and casualty boxes, our turn track. You can see this is a total of 6 turns from 0900 to 1400. Get your reinforcements marked on here. If you roll a 0 through 2, you get your reinforcements early, or 0 to 5 at noon, and after that at 1 o'clock or 1300, you get it automatically, basically. And then on the other side, you have Mill Springs, same thing. Oh, I forgot the victory point track at the bottom. And then we have New Bern. There's old Burnside, old Sideburns himself. It's funny how it was Burnside and it got turned into Sideburns. Because if you think about it, what does that, what sense does hair on your face make when you call them sideburns? Whatever, but that is where that comes from. That's kind of interesting. Then we've got 7 hours in our game, or 7 turns, 7 hours. Each turn is an hour. Victory point total down here. And on this side, we have the Second Battle of Rappahannock Station. And again, you get your commander with his efficiency, and then our turn track, very short. In fact, one of the scenarios, I think, is just this 1 hour or 2 hour turn here. Then you got your victory point track at the bottom. Then we have the Confederate side, same thing. So you have Magruder here for Big Bethel, same thing. On the other side, Mill Springs, Zollicoffer and Carroll, right? And you've got Rain, right? That was also on the Union one. I didn't point it out there. But then you have New Bern here with Branch, and Rappahannock Station with Jubal Early. All right, second disorder table on one side, and our TEC on the other side for Big Bethel. Then we have one here. This one is Mill Springs. Okay, and we have this one. It is for New Bern. And as you might guess, this one would be for second Rappahannock. Why can't I say that? I've said it a million times in my life. Rappahannock Station. All right. Here's our player A card. It is a fold out. So you have your rally table here, brigade orders change table here, loose cannon, and a nice explanation of what that means here. Brigade coordination table. On the inside, range effects chart, right, for your weapon types. So these are your infantry weapons, and these are your artillery weapons. Infantry / cavalry weapons, right? Anything but the guns, the big guns. Stacking limitations, non-phasing fire eligibility, And you've got your fire table here for small arms and artillery, separate areas, and all the adjustments that can be done. Explanation of results. And on the back, we have shock resolution. Up here, the adjustments for shock here, your resolution procedure for shock, your defender's pre-shock DRMs, and your odds ratio DRM benefit. And we have 2 copies of that, as you would expect, in a 2-player game. And then here are our counter sheets, and the maps are on the bottom. I'll put those to the side for the moment. So this is counter sheet 1 of 2. We'll take a quick look here. You can see there's Magruder. You've got Branch, Early, Crittenden, D.H. Hill, all those Confederate guys, right? Various leaders for the Confederates on that side. On this side, we have the Union guys. Butler, Burnside, Russell, Thomas, Pierce, Washburn, Elmicker, and Tompkins, Manson, McCook, Carter. So a bunch of these guys. Foster, Reno, Park, Upton, and then the units. You can see some New York regiments here, including some Zouaves, it looks like. It's kind of cool. And then you've got the artillery there. Got some Connecticut. We got some Massachusetts, more New York, more Connecticut, Maine, more cavalry, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, right? And on this side, you have the same kind of thing. We have some North Carolinas here, a lot of North Carolinas. We got some Virginia at the top, right? You can see various units, some Louisiana there, Tennessee, Alabama. Okay, so that's one, and they are double-sided. So here's the other side, as you would expect. Then we got our counter sheet 2. These are all your markers, pretty much. So you've got a lot of number markers for those are the step loss markers. You've got some control markers here, some various victory point tracks, time markers. Here's your refused flanks. For the left, I think the right might be on the right's on the other side. And you've got advance orders here, skipped activation, attack orders, etc. Right? Fatigue markers, collapsed, cavalry charge, some low ammo markers, combat ineffective markers, abandoned. There's your abandoned artillery. There's more of those over here. Extended columns, all kinds of stuff in here. Right, and then of course we have maps. As I said, these are relatively smallish here. So this is the Battle of New Bethel, which is the first or earliest battle, I believe, in these 4. A couple months into the war, not even really. But anyway, you've got here's White Creek. You've got some swamp here or marsh. I saw that in the battle book. You got the built-in breastworks here as well, and a bunch of forest, woods. Yeah, woods, marsh, clear, farms, orchards, and then you've got the creek, a ford. The ford is right here. Bridges. There's a bridge here, and streams branching off from the creek. Earthworks and graded slopes. So, got some elevation here. To Yorktown, to Newport News, to Hampton, Back River Road to Hampton. This was when I was in the Air Force, I was stationed at Langley Air Force Base, which is in Hampton. So I'm familiar with that area. Anyway, the last charge of the 5th New York Infantry Regiment at the Battle of Big Bethel. Nice. Flip it over, and this is Mill Springs. It also has a nice little piece of art here. Now this one, you've got woods, clear, cultivated fields in here. Field victory points. So there are some areas on here which afford victory points. And then you've got hexside terrain, tree lines, minor streams, Clifty Creek, which is right here. Gullies, ridges, and steep slopes. And then an elevation key as well down here. All right. Nice maps done by Charles Kibler. He's obviously a very accomplished map artist. And so that's the first two. And then we've got the other two here. Whoops. Didn't mean to make a big noise. Here's New Bern. So here you've got a big river up at the top, right? And a lot of woods. A lot of woods. Here's the Atlantic and North Carolina Railroad, right? And you've got the Bullen Branch here and some streams. We got a little bit of elevation. Then you've got river and coast, river obstruction, Fort Thompson right here along the banks of the river. The Fort Thompson line is this here. So you've got breastworks, as you can see, and they extend quite far down to protect the fort. And these are abattis here. What else we got? Clear, woods, marsh, ponds here. And then things like entrenchments and breastworks and streams and gullies and ridges and graded slopes and riverbank and prohibited terrain, which has a dash through it. What would be this right here? So that is New Bern. And of course, on the other side is the second battle of Rappahannock Station. So here's the Rappahannock River. You have a bridge. You have a blown out bridge over here. I don't see any fords on this one. Another railroad, Orange and Alexandria Railroad. So this is a look at that. This one's a fairly open, looks fairly open in terms of being a battlefield, as opposed to New Bern, which was very, very woods, a lot of trees. Kind of like almost like a mini Shiloh, maybe, looking at the battlefield at least. So this is the fourth and final map. And as I mentioned, we do get a tray here, a single tray for your counters, which I think is pretty cool because I really don't get that very often. Now we'll put everything back in the box here. This has been maybe the longest first look I've ever done. I think I'm going to categorize this as a first look and rules review, because I did spend a lot of time on the rules, and you may or may not think that was worthwhile, but for anybody who wants a fairly in-depth look at how complex, let's say, this game is, you now have that look here. So put it all back in here in our dice, and then we put the lid back on the box. And that completes our first look at By Swords and Bayonets. You can bet your bottom dollar I will be playing this soon. So look for something. I don't know what. I might play Mill Springs. I think Mill Springs is also in Brothers at War. So that would be a good... I like to do that. Play the same thing in 2 games. Then you get a look at it from a couple different viewpoints, so to speak. And so that might be worth doing. I think that is in both. But I don't have that game in front of me at the moment, so I don't know for sure. Where did I put it? I don't even see it around here, but I do have it. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah. So but that's going to do it for now. I appreciate you guys watching. If you have questions, comments, etc., you know what to do. Put them in the comment section. I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. But we are done for now. Please consider liking, sharing, and or subscribing if you are a subscriber. Thank you very much. I appreciate the support. And I'm going to sign off now. I'm Joe. This is Hexed Encountered. And until next time, as always, happy gaming.